I'm Anne. I am Rosemary Garlic. At least it's my project. It's a folk band. We make storytelling folk, I think. Somewhere in between folk and some electronics and some poetry. I don't want to talk about Corona too much, but when the pandemic started, I just moved to the countryside and went to live in an old farm, actually. And there was all the time because there were no shows, nothing to do. And I was just planning to start writing a new album, and also taking the time to just start reading and start reading the books that were lying there for all the time. The first thing that we did was making me a room to work in. So in this old farm, I had my own room that I could just tidy up and put my guitars in and my stuff. And I felt so privileged. And that made me think of Virginia Woolf's essay, A Room of One's Own, which I had read during my studies. I studied literature. And yeah, it's almost 100 years old, that essay, but it's still very how do you say that, accurate. So I started rereading that, and I thought, wow, it's that same kind of feeling 100 years later, and everyone is working from home, and you're just privileged to have your own room where you can work in silence. And of course, it's also a metaphor for having the time, the money, as a woman, especially in her age. But of course, still, yeah, it's not much of a difference. Yeah, I think it's important to have that free time and space and money to be able to work on music or on your writing, and it's and to develop yourself. It's a metaphor also, of course, for having your own space, finding your own space. Having your own room means being able to think things through, maybe letting go of certain things in the past, or patterns, or people, or relationships. It just gives you like a pause, a space in between. When you're when you're done working and you go out, you have renewed yourself. And I think that's also what happened during the pandemic. I hope that people would take some time to just yeah, think through their lives and maybe tighten up. Well, I have my garden, I have my long walks. Um, I think it's nice to also be outside a lot and just kind of have that intertwined with your life, with your daily life. So working means working some hours on music, and then just go out and work in the garden, and then your mind just, things get their place where you were busy with, and then after you're done, you go back inside and work. So there's not really a time frame in which I was working. I was just constantly or working or just being around the house and being busy, growing the garden and the vegetables and the flowers, and taking long walks in between. Yeah, I think in that way also for me, walking, taking long walks at I live at the riverside. Um, I could, yeah, just listen to my demos and walk on the rhythm, and then that's where the lyrics start growing, or the melodies come. So that's also intertwined with my way of working. And I never thought that I would be, yeah, so happy living here, because of course I love the city as well, and I love to be inspired by conversations or people you just come across, or if you go to museums, or just randomly observe in a cafe. uh, yeah, I do miss that too, but yeah, for now it's nice to be here. I think it has, in a way that it just, yeah, it's intertwined with time, and I just took a lot of time also to just work on things and put them aside and go get back to it. yeah, somewhere later, in a day or in maybe in months. So I think that notion of time really is a part of the album. It has a lot of space and a lot of literally room for the instruments and the arrangements. And yeah, I started doing like the backings maybe a year later. Just it's such a different process, but yeah, I took that time, I think, and I think that's what you can hear also. Something I think also that I can read in Virginia Woolf's work, right? Her novels are full of time. There's just different time. There's the difference between clock time, the thing we as humans invented, so that we could make appointments and do trading. But that's something different than time. Speaking of time in a subjective way. So I think around the around beginning of this last century, there was, for example, Bergson, a French philosopher, who said that time is something that is always moving. You're in two ways in time. So you're moving around things and around people, and there's a kind of movement that is time. You're always in time, which is something like when you're sitting in a train or in a bike ride, it feels nice to be having a kind of a speed because it feels natural or something. I also have that with my walking. It feels natural, but I also have that with making music, and listening to music as well. It feels very natural to be in some kind of BPM, right? It being in time. Uh, yeah, and it's something also that I read in Virginia Woolf's works a lot. So that clock time is more old fashioned, and it's making people nervous. And then there's subjective times, there's the changing of the sceneries, and people just being in their movements and in their daily life, and that is that feels more natural. And yeah, there are always some old folk shows coming through. Of course, yeah. I always tune my guitar different. And I started when I was, I think, around 15 or 16. I listened a lot to Joni Mitchell, and I tried to figure out her tunings because there was no YouTube. I'm sorry, I'm 35 almost, but so there was this one website that had some kind of explanation of how to from one tuning to go to the other. And I remember that I just was listening and trying to figure out the songs. And so that different kind of tunings are still in the music. And so of course, yeah, Joni Mitchell's very important. Also Joan Baez, of course. um but I also like, for example, it's not really folk, but I even like these female women from the 90s who have their particularly nice vocals of their own vocals. Not this I love the 90s because there were just some women like Suzanne Vega or Kate Bush, or she was earlier also, of course, but to have their own true voices, not to be really good at singing. Or Amy Mann, for example, not really a super good singing voice, but a very authentic voice, I think. Powerful. Yeah. And so I think I'm influenced by that as well. I still listen to a lot of those ladies because their voices are just, I love them. I don't know if it's mundane, it's just maybe the ordinary things that just, so for example, this one song is called Television, and it's about an old woman who lives in a nursery home. And you could say that's a very maybe yeah, ordinary subject, maybe not to write songs about. But I wanted to write a song about her, as a woman losing her dignity, at being treated like a child in the common room of this nursery home. She wanted to sit by the window, escaping in her reverie, in her poetry reading, instead of watching TV with the others. And I think that that's something that you could say that's ordinary or daily life, but they are very human things. Yeah, growing older and still being treated like a person with knowledge, and you have had your whole life, so they're very human and they touch me. I really like people that are a bit modest, and that are maybe, yeah, they have a strong imaginary world. I love the way you can cope with life, using your imagination. And I think that's happening a lot with people who don't really fit in. They have their minds that can kind of save them, because it's such a strong thing that you can handle a situation by just dreaming away, or giving it another reason, or find comfort somewhere. um I think, yeah, I want to have an eye for that, or I want to find that in my songs as well, maybe. Yeah, to have kind of uh an escape in kind of, it's not per se dreamy, but yeah, I want to I don't know, acknowledge that the power of the mind. It sounds a bit weird, maybe, but I think, yeah, that really inspires me, how people can escape in their dreams, and find a way to cope with, of course, darker things in life. So, for example, I wrote a song called Blue Boy, and I wrote it for a friend who I lost. He had an addiction, and he took his own life in the end. Um, and he was always somewhere in the park. So he lived in the city, and he would go to the park, and he would just sit on a bench and watch this stupid park become his whole world. Full of colors, and that was his escape. But the main thing that was happening was he was, yeah, getting more and more isolated, and he found some kind of, maybe, I hope, that's at least that's what I hope, he found some kind of, um, yeah, comfort in his surrounding, and his ability to still find beauty in things. And I think to find beauty in things is super strong, is super strong quality of the mind. um yeah, so that song is for him, and it's about that. Yeah, we used to play with a full band. So then I had a drummer, and keys, and cello also. We actually played at South by Southwest. I saw you were there last week. Yeah, a few years ago. But for now, I don't know. I was thinking, I was just rehearsing with my piano player, uh, and we were brainstorming about the live setting. I think the new songs, they have some arrangement, but they are small songs, so they can also stand alone with piano and guitar. I love playing live, and I love the atmosphere, but it also scares me a lot. And and especially with with these songs, they are also personal, and I want to tell the stories of them. And yeah, play the stripped down versions, it's uh, I always have to take a deep breath before we're going to play again. And especially now, because it's been a while. Yeah, I don't know yet if I can do it. Yeah.